The emergency beacon cut through the void of space like a blade through silk. Its signal pulsed with desperate urgency, carrying a message that would change everything. Captain Zara Chen stood on the bridge of the human vessel. Resilience, her dark eyes fixed on the holographic display. The alien transmission flickered before her, its strange symbols dancing in patterns that spoke of terror and hope in equal measure. "Captain," called Lieutenant Marcus Webb from his station, his voice tight with concern. "We're picking up something you need to hear." The bridge fell silent as Webb activated the translation protocols. Static filled the air, then cleared to reveal a voice unlike anything they had heard before. It was melodic, almost musical, but beneath the beauty lay pure desperation. "This is Research Vessel. Harmony's dream. Of the Melodian Coalition, the voice sang through the speakers. We are dying. The Void Hunters found us. They consume everything. Our shields fail. Our weapons do nothing. Please. If anyone receives this, we are not warriors. We are scientists, explorers, musicians. We cannot fight these creatures. Help us. Please help us." The transmission crackled with interference, then resumed with heart-wrenching clarity. "We have children aboard. 47 younglings who will never see their homeworlds again unless someone comes. We offer everything we have, all our knowledge, our art, our music. Just don't let us die in silence." The message ended with coordinates and a timestamp. Webb looked up from his console, his face pale. "Captain, this signal is only 6 hours old. They could still be alive." Captain Chen stood motionless for a long moment, processing what they had heard. Around her, the bridge crew waited in tense silence. The Resilience was a deep space exploration vessel, not a warship. They carried scientists, engineers, and diplomats, not soldiers. "Ma'am," Webb continued, his fingers dancing over his console, "I'm reading the star charts. Those coordinates? They're in the neutral zone, right on the edge of unexplored space." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's chief xenobiologist, stepped forward from her observation post. Her silver hair caught the light from the displays as she spoke. "Captain, I've been monitoring similar distress calls for the past few months. Ships going missing, entire colonies going silent. Something is hunting out there." "The Void Hunters," whispered Navigator Tom Park from his station. "I've heard rumors. From the outer colonies. Ships that attack without warning. Creatures that seem to feed on energy itself." Captain Chen turned to face her crew. These weren't hardened warriors or battle-tested Marines. They were explorers, scientists, the best and brightest that humanity had to offer. But as she looked into their eyes, she saw something that made her proud to be human. She saw determination. "Options," she said simply. Chief Engineer Rosa Martinez spoke up from the engineering station. "We're 3 days out at maximum warp. Our shields are rated for deep space exploration, not combat. We have defensive capabilities, but nothing like a military vessel." "And our weapons?" Chen asked. Martinez grimaced. "Plasma cannons designed for asteroid mining and defensive pulse arrays. We're scientists, not soldiers." Dr. Vasquez stepped closer to the captain. "With respect, ma'am, that's not entirely true. We may not be soldiers, but we're human. And humans have something most species don't." "Which is?" Chen asked. "We're from a death world, Captain. Earth forged us in fire and ice, in predators and plagues, in disasters that would destroy most species. We're survivors by nature. We're problem solvers. We're—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Stubborn." Lieutenant Webb nodded eagerly. "Dr. Vasquez is right. I've read the xenological reports. Most spacefaring species evolved on garden worlds, peaceful planets with stable climates and few natural predators. They developed technology through cooperation and harmony. And we developed it through conflict and necessity," Park added. "Every human innovation came from someone trying to solve a problem that could kill them." Captain Chen felt a smile tug at the corner of her mouth. "You're suggesting we answer their distress call?" "I'm suggesting," Dr. Vasquez said, "that those Melodians chose well when they broadcast that signal. They asked for help, and it reached the one species in the galaxy Crazy enough to actually provide it. The captain looked around her bridge one more time. These people were scholars and explorers, but they were also human. And humans had a reputation in the galaxy that was both feared and respected. They never left anyone behind. Set course for those coordinates, Chen ordered. Maximum warp. Captain, Webb said, his fingers flying over his console. I'm picking up something else. Long-range sensors are detecting massive energy signatures in that system. Whatever these void hunters are, they're big. How big? Chen asked. Webb's face went white. Each ship is reading as roughly the size of a small moon. The bridge fell, silent again. The enormity of what they were contemplating settled over them like a heavy blanket. They were one ship, carrying 400 souls racing toward creatures that could consume entire vessels. But the alternative was letting the Melodians die. Captain Chen straightened her shoulders and looked out at the stars streaming past their viewport. Then we'd better be creative. All department heads to the conference room in 1 hour. We're going to war. As the Resilients leaped into warp space, racing toward an unknown enemy, none of them realized they were about to become the answer to a prayer that would echo throughout the galaxy. The humans were coming, and they were bringing all the fury and ingenuity that their Deathworld had taught them. Chapter 2. The hunters in the dark 3 days of hyperspace travel gave the crew of the Resilience time to prepare for what they might find. Captain Chen had turned the ship into a hive of activity, with every department working around the clock to transform their exploration vessel into something that could face the unknown. The conference room buzzed with nervous energy as the senior staff gathered around the holographic display. The image before them showed the Melodian ship's last known position, surrounded by ominous red markers indicating the Void Hunter vessels. Report, Chen ordered. Taking her seat at the head of the table, Chief Engineer Martinez was the first to speak. We've made modifications to our defensive systems. I've rerouted power from non-essential systems to boost our shields by 30%. It won't make us invincible, but it might keep us alive long enough to think. Dr. Vasquez activated her tablet, projecting data into the center of the table. I've been analyzing every scrap of information we have about these Void Hunters. The reports are disturbing. They seem to feed on energy, ship's power, life force, even stellar radiation. Witnesses describe them as living shadows with the ability to phase through solid matter. Lieutenant Webb leaned forward. I've been working with communications to boost our signal strength. If we can make contact with the Melodians, we might be able to coordinate our approach. Navigator Park pulled up a tactical display. I've plotted 17 different escape routes from the target system. The problem is, if these creatures are as fast as the reports suggest, running might not be an option. Captain Chen studied the data flowing across the displays. What about weapons? What do we know about how to hurt these things? The room fell silent. Finally, Dr. Vasquez spoke up. There's one report from a Centaurian defense platform. They managed to damage a Void Hunter using concentrated electromagnetic pulses. The theory is that these creatures exist partially in subspace and EM interference disrupts their phase capabilities. Our mining lasers, Martinez said suddenly, her eyes lighting up. We can modify them to emit EM pulses instead of coherent light. It won't be pretty, but it might work. Webb nodded enthusiastically. And our communication arrays can be reconfigured to broadcast wide-spectrum EM interference. If we can disrupt their phasing ability, they become solid targets, Chen finished. How long do you need? 6 hours for the laser modifications, Martinez replied. Maybe less if we skip the safety protocols. Skip them, Chen ordered. Dr. Vasquez, I want you to prepare medical teams for casualties and for contact with the Melodian survivors. Already done, Captain. I've reviewed their physiology from their first contact reports. They're silicon-based life forms with crystalline bone structures. Fragile by our standards, but remarkably intelligent. Park suddenly stiffened at his console. Captain, we're approaching the target system, dropping out of warp in 60 seconds. The room fell silent as the countdown proceeded. Chen felt her heart racing as they prepared to face the unknown. All hands to battle stations. This is what we came for. The Resilience dropped out of warp space at the edge of a dying system. Before them stretched a scene from humanity's darkest nightmares. The Melodian vessel, Harmony's dream. Hung in space like a broken toy, its once graceful curves scarred and pitted. But it wasn't dead. Faint lights still glowed from its translucent hull, signs of life clinging desperately to existence. Around it, like sharks circling wounded prey, moved the Void Hunters. Mother of God, Webb whispered. The creatures were massive, each one easily 3 kilometers long. They looked like living shadows, their forms shifting and flowing as if made of liquid darkness given shape. Strange protrusions that might have been weapons or sensory organs jutted from their hulls and along their flanks. Bioluminescent patterns pulsed with malevolent intelligence. They're beautiful, Dr. Vasquez said in awe, and absolutely terrifying. Captain Chen studied the tactical display. 6 Void Hunters surrounded the Melodian ship with 2 more approaching from the outer system. The odds were impossible. Ma'am, Webb called from communications. I'm receiving a transmission from the Melodian ship. They're alive, but barely. Their life support is failing, and their shields are down to 15%. Can we talk to them? Yes, ma'am. Patching. Through now. The voice that came through the speakers was weaker than before, trembling with exhaustion and fear. Unknown vessel, this is Captain Vriska of the Harmony's dream. You came. We didn't think anyone would come. Chen activated the response channel. This is Captain Zara Chen of the human vessel, Resilience. We received your distress call. We're here to help. A pause, then. Human? You are the Deathworlders? But there is only one of your ships. The Void Hunters are 8 in number, and each is 1,000 times our size. You cannot possibly... Captain Vriska, Chen interrupted. Gently, you called for help. Humans don't abandon people who need us. What's your status? We have 372 souls aboard, including the younglings. Our weapons failed days ago. Our shields will collapse within the hour. The creatures, they feed on our energy, growing stronger as we grow weaker. Chen looked around her bridge. Her crew stared back at her with grim determination. They all knew the odds. They all knew this was likely a suicide mission. They were going to do it anyway. Captain Vriska, we need you to do exactly as we say. Can your ship still maneuver? Barely. We have thruster control, but not much more. That'll have to be enough. Stand by. Chen switched to internal communications. All hands, this is the captain. We are vastly outnumbered and outgunned. By any reasonable measure, what we're about to attempt is impossible. But reason is a luxury we can't afford. Those people down there are counting on us, and we're not going to let them down. She paused, looking out at the Void Hunters as they circled their prey. Today, these creatures are going to learn why the galaxy calls us Deathworlders. They're about to discover what happens when you threaten something a human decides to protect. Martinez's voice crackled over the comm. Weapons modifications complete, Captain. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Then let's show them what humans can do. All stations, prepare for attack, run Alpha. We're going in. The Resilience surged forward, accelerating toward impossible odds. On the bridge, Captain Chen gripped her chair as her ship raced toward creatures that had destroyed countless civilizations. Behind them, space itself seemed to hold its breath. The Deathworlders were about to answer the call. Chapter 3. When prey becomes predator, the first Void Hunter didn't see them coming. The Resilience dropped from high warp directly behind the largest creature, her modified mining lasers already charging. Captain Chen had gambled everything on Dr. Vasquez's theory about electromagnetic interference, and now they would learn if humans could bleed shadows. Fire, Chen commanded. The ship's mining array erupted in a blaze of concentrated electromagnetic energy. Instead of the usual coherent laser beams designed to cut through asteroids, the weapons now projected chaotic pulses of EM radiation that tore through space like invisible lightning. The effect on the Void Hunter was immediate and spectacular. The creature's phase-shifting ability collapsed, its shadowy form suddenly becoming solid and vulnerable. Where the EM pulses struck, the living darkness writhed and contracted, revealing something underneath that looked almost biological. "It's working!" Lieutenant Webb shouted from his station. "The EM interference is disrupting their phase coherence." But their success came at a price. The moment the first hunter materialized fully, the others turned toward the Resilience with predatory fury. These creatures had fed on countless ships, consuming civilizations without ever facing real resistance. They had never encountered prey that fought back with such vicious creativity. "Evasive maneuvers," Chen ordered, as massive tendrils of living shadow lashed out toward their ship. Navigator Park threw them into a spiraling dive that would have torn apart most vessels, but the Resilience held together through superior human engineering and sheer stubborn determination. "Chief Engineer," Martinez's voice echoed through the bridge. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy spikes from the hunters. They're adapting to our EM frequency." "Then change frequencies," Chen replied, gripping her chair as another near miss sent vibrations through the hull. "Keep them guessing," Dr. Vasquez, monitoring the tactical display, called out suddenly. "Captain, look at their formation. They're not just hunting. They're herding us away from the Melodian ship." Chen studied the battle space and realized the xenobiologist was right. The Void Hunters were coordinating their attacks to drive the Resilience away from their original prey. It was pack behavior, sophisticated and intelligent. "They're protecting their food source," Chen murmured, then louder. "Webb, open a channel to the Melodian ship." "Channel open, ma'am." "Captain Vriska, can your ship still move?" The response came through heavy static as EM interference from the battle disrupted communications. "Yes, barely. Our engines are failing, but we have maneuvering thrusters. I need you to do something that's going to sound insane. When I give the signal, I want you to fly directly toward the largest Void Hunter." Silence greeted this request. Finally, Vriska's musical voice returned, tinged with what might have been hysteria. "Captain Chen, did you just ask us to fly toward the creature that has been trying to consume us for 3 days? Trust me, these things are pack hunters, but they're also protective of their prey. If you move toward the Alpha, the others will converge to protect it. That's when we strike." "Captain," Dr. Vasquez interrupted, "I'm detecting unusual energy patterns from the hunters. They're communicating with each other through some form of quantum entanglement. Their coordination is far more sophisticated than we anticipated." Chen felt a chill run down her spine. If these creatures could coordinate perfectly across interstellar distances, how many other species had fallen to their coordinated hunts? All the more reason to end this quickly. "Martinez, status on weapons?" "EM projectors are holding steady, but the hunters are adapting faster than I can modify our output. We might have minutes before they develop full immunity." Park suddenly called out from navigation. "Captain, I've got an idea, but it's completely insane." "I'm listening." "What if we don't try to outrun them? What if we do the opposite?" Chen turned to stare at her navigator. "Explain." "These things phase through matter, right? But our EM interference makes them solid. What if we fly straight into the middle of their formation and emit EM pulses in all directions?" Webb caught on immediately. "A pulse bomb. Force all of them to materialize simultaneously while we're in the center of their formation." "We'd be torn apart," Martinez protested. "Maybe," Park replied. "Or maybe they'd be too confused and crowded to coordinate their attacks. Predators rely on space to maneuver. Take that away and they become prey." Captain Chen stared out at the swirling battle, watching her ship dance between creatures that could swallow small moons. It was the kind of plan that only a human would consider, turning a tactical disadvantage into a weapon. "Do it," she ordered. "All power to shields. Martinez, prepare for maximum EM output on my mark. Webb, tell the Melodians to get as far away as possible." The Resilience suddenly changed course, diving straight toward the heart of the Void Hunter formation. The creatures, sensing easy prey, converged on the small ship with predatory glee. "They're taking the bait," Dr. Vasquez reported. "All 8 hunters are closing on our position." "Wait for it," Chen whispered, watching the tactical display as the massive creatures surrounded them. Wait. The Void Hunters were so close now that their shadowy forms blotted out the stars. Tendrils of living darkness reached out to envelop the human ship, ready to drain its energy and add another victory to their endless hunt. Now, Chen shouted. Every EM projector on the Resilience fired simultaneously, sending waves of electromagnetic interference in all directions. The effect was immediate and chaotic. 8 massive Void Hunters suddenly materialized in a space meant for one. Their phase-shifted forms became solid, real, vulnerable. And in that moment of confusion, as the creatures struggled to avoid colliding with each other, Captain Chen played humanity's final card. Martinez, overload the warp core, create a subspace rupture. Ma'am, that could destroy us all. Or it could tear a hole in space-time and send these things back where they came from. Do it. The engineer's hands flew over her controls, pushing the ship's warp drive beyond all safety limits. Energy readings spiked into the red as the fabric of space-time began to buckle under the strain. The Void Hunters, sensing the danger, tried to scatter, but materialized and crowded together. They couldn't phase fast enough to escape. Reality tore open like a wound in the universe. The subspace rupture pulled at everything nearby with irresistible force. But the Hunters, solid and massive in their materialized state, couldn't resist the pull. One by one, they were dragged screaming into the tear in space-time, their forms stretching and distorting as they disappeared into whatever realm lay beyond normal space. When the rupture finally collapsed, the system fell silent. The Resilience floated alone in space, her hull scarred and smoking but still intact. And nearby, the Melodian ship, Harmony's Dream, drifted free, her people saved by the impossible bravery of their rescuers. Captain Chen slumped in her chair, exhausted but alive. Around her, the bridge crew slowly realized what they had accomplished. They had faced the terror of the void and emerged victorious. But as Webb monitored long-range sensors, his expression grew troubled. Captain, I'm picking up something on the edge of the system. Multiple contacts moving fast. More hunters? Chen asked wearily. No, ma'am. These signatures are different. Ships. Lots of them. Dr. Vasquez checked her xenological database. Captain, I think word has gotten out. On the main screen, dozens of ships dropped out of warp. Centaurian cruisers, Altarian science vessels, even a few ships from species Chen didn't recognize. They formed a loose formation around the Resilience, their weapons powered down in a gesture of respect. Webb's console chimed with an incoming transmission. Ma'am, we're receiving messages from everyone, the entire sector, it seems. Put them through. The voice that came through the speakers was distinctly non-human, with the mechanical precision of an artificial intelligence. Human vessel Resilience. This is Admiral Zix-9 of the Centaurian Defense Force. We monitored your battle through quantum resonance scanners. Your victory over the Void Hunters has been noted throughout civilized space. Another voice, this one warm and organic. Captain Chen, this is Speaker Talara of the Altarian Council. We wish to formally thank you for demonstrating that the Void Hunters can be defeated. Your tactics will save countless lives. More voices joined in, a chorus of gratitude from across the galaxy. Species that had lived in terror of the Hunters now had hope. Captain Vriska's musical voice cut through the others. Human friends, we owe you a debt that can never be repaid. You answered our call when no one else would. You risked everything for strangers. This is why the galaxy needs Deathworlders. Chen looked around her bridge at her crew, scientists and engineers who had become warriors when the situation demanded it. They had proven something important today, not just to themselves but to the entire galaxy. Humans might be from a death world, but they used that strength to protect life. All ships, Chen broadcast. This is Captain Chen of the Resilience. Today we learned that no predator is invincible, no enemy is unbeatable, and no one who calls for help should ever go unanswered. She paused, looking out at the assembled fleet of grateful species. The Void Hunters fed on fear and isolation, but they made one critical mistake. They attacked someone under human protection, and humans never forget their friends. As the rescue fleet began coordinating relief efforts for the Melodian survivors, word of the battle spread across the galaxy at the speed of light. The story grew with each telling, how a single human ship had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious through courage, creativity, and sheer stubborn determination. But Captain Chen knew the truth was simpler. They had answered a call for help. Everything else was just details. Chapter 4. The Deathworld Doctrine. 6 months after the Battle of the Void, as historians would later call it, Captain Chen stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Harmony Station. The assembly hall stretched out before her like an amphitheater, filled with representatives from hundreds of species across known space. She had never wanted to be here. The Resilience was an exploration vessel, not a diplomatic flagship. But the galaxy had insisted on recognizing what humans had accomplished, and more importantly, what it meant for the future. "Captain Chen," spoke Chancellor Vextar, the jellyfish-like being who served as the Council's current president. "Your actions at the Void Hunter incident have created ripples throughout civilized space. We have asked you here to discuss the implications." Chen looked out at the assembly. She could see fear in some faces, admiration in others, and something that might have been calculation in a few. The galaxy was trying to figure out what to do about humanity. "Chancellor," Chen replied, "my crew and I simply answered a distress call. We did what any civilized species would do." A ripple of what might have been laughter passed through the assembly. Chancellor Vextar's chromatophores shifted to a pattern Chen had learned indicated polite disagreement. "Captain, with respect, that is precisely the issue. Most civilized species would not have attempted what you accomplished. The tactical analysis of your battle has been studied by military strategists across the galaxy. Your methods were unconventional." Ambassador Iriel of the Centaurian Republic stood from her delegation. Her species was known for their logical approach to problem-solving, which made her next words all the more significant. "Captain Chen, in the 6 months since, your Victory Void Hunter attacks have ceased entirely. Not reduced, ceased. Our xenopsychologists believe your battle broke their pack structure and demonstrated that they were no longer the apex predators they believed themselves to be." She paused, her metallic features reflecting the chamber's lights. "More significantly, your tactics have been analyzed and distributed throughout our defense networks. The human doctrine, as it's being called, has revolutionized our approach to asymmetric warfare." Chen felt uncomfortable with the attention. "Ambassador, we improvised based on the situation. There's no grand doctrine." "But there is," interrupted Dr. Krivo, the insectoid representative from the hive worlds. "Your species has a unique approach to conflict resolution. You see problems as opportunities for creative solutions rather than obstacles to be avoided." Chancellor Vextar's chromatophores shifted to display what Chen recognized as deep curiosity. "Captain, the Council has been reviewing humanity's first contact records and subsequent interactions with our member species. A pattern has emerged." The chamber's central display activated, showing a 3-dimensional map of local space. Dozens of incidents were highlighted across the sectors where humans had been active. "The Altarian Plague Crisis. Human medical teams found a cure in 3 days using methods our scientists considered impossibly dangerous. The Nexus Station mining disaster. Human engineers used controlled explosions inside a collapsing structure to save trapped workers. The Vrex trade dispute. Human diplomats resolved a century-old conflict by proposing a solution both sides had deemed culturally impossible." Each incident illuminated on the map, creating a pattern of human involvement in seemingly hopeless situations. "In every case," the Chancellor continued, "humans succeeded where other species had failed, not through superior technology or resources, but through what can only be described as creative recklessness." Ambassador Talara of the Altarian. Council rose gracefully. Her species was known for their philosophical nature, and her words carried the weight of deep consideration. "Captain Chen, we have spent considerable time analyzing what makes humanity unique among spacefaring species. Most of us evolved on worlds that taught us cooperation, harmony, and careful risk assessment. Your species evolved on what you call a death world, a planet that actively tried to kill you for millions of years. She gestured to the display, which now showed images of Earth, tornadoes, volcanic eruptions, predatory animals, and weather patterns that would be considered catastrophic on most worlds. This environment forged you into something unprecedented, a species that views deadly challenges as problems to be solved rather than threats to be avoided. You have turned survival itself into an art form. Captain Vriska of the Melodian Coalition stood next. Her crystalline form chimed softly as she moved, creating a musical accompaniment to her words. Honored humans, in the month since you saved our ship, something remarkable has happened. The children, our younglings who you rescued, they have been composing songs about your battle. Not songs of war or violence, but songs of hope. Her voice took on the distinctive harmonic quality that made Melodian speech so beautiful. They sing of the day the darkness learned to fear the light. They sing of protectors who came from the far stars when no one else would answer. They sing of the Deathworlders who chose to preserve life. Chen felt emotions tightening in her throat. Captain Vriska, Please let me finish. Your species has given us something we had lost. The belief that someone will always answer when we call for help. This is a gift beyond measure. Chancellor Vextar's chromatophores shifted to display what Chen had learned was profound respect. Captain, the Council has voted. We wish to extend an unprecedented offer to humanity. The chamber fell silent. Chen could feel the weight of history settling on her shoulders. We offer humanity associate membership in the Galactic Council, with full voting rights on matters of interstellar security. We also propose the establishment of the Human Response Corps, an officially recognized rapid intervention force equipped with ships and resources specifically designed to handle situations that conventional wisdom deems impossible. The implications hit Chen like a physical blow. They were asking humanity to become the galaxy's emergency responders, the ones who got called when everyone else had given up hope. Chancellor, Chen said carefully, that's a tremendous honor, but I'm just one ship captain. I can't speak for all of humanity. But you can speak to your leaders, Ambassador Iril replied. The galaxy needs Deathworlders, Captain. We need species. Crazy enough to charge impossible odds and creative enough to find solutions where none exist. Dr. Krivo's compound eyes fixed on Chen with insectoid intensity. Captain, in our archives we have records of over 3,000 species that achieved spaceflight in the last 50,000 years. Of those, fewer than 800 survived first contact with existential threats like the Void Hunters. The weight of those numbers settled over the chamber. Most species, when faced with overwhelming odds, surrender or retreat. It is logical. It is sensible. It is safe. The insectoid's mandibles clicked in what Chen had learned was their equivalent of a rueful smile. But safety is not always survival. Sometimes survival requires the willingness to do the impossible. Captain Chen looked around the chamber one more time. Representatives of hundreds of species, all looking to humanity for something they couldn't provide themselves. I'll carry your message to Earth, she said finally. But I want something understood. If humanity accepts this responsibility, we'll do it on our terms. We don't fight for conquest or glory. We fight for people who need help. That, said Chancellor Vextar, is precisely why we're asking. Later, as Chen walked through Harmony, Station's observation deck, she found herself staring out at the stars. So many worlds, so many species, all looking to humanity to be their protectors. Lieutenant Webb approached from behind, carrying 2 cups of coffee, a luxury even here at the galaxy's diplomatic heart. Penny for your thoughts, Captain, Yen. Accepted the coffee gratefully. Just wondering if we're ready for this, Marcus. The galaxy wants us to be their emergency responders, their crisis solvers, their heroes. And that worries you? It terrifies me, Chen admitted. What if we fail? What if the next time we can't find a miracle solution? Webb was quiet for a moment, sipping his coffee and watching the stars. Finally, he spoke. Captain, do you remember what Dr. Vasquez said before we faced the Void Hunters? About humans being stubborn? I remember. She was right, but it's more than that. We're not just stubborn, we're optimistic. Even when everything looks hopeless, we keep believing there's a solution. Most species see a problem and calculate the odds of failure. We see a problem and start figuring out how to solve it. He turned to face her. Maybe that's what the galaxy needs. Not heroes, not warriors, but people who refuse to give up. Chen smiled, feeling some of the weight lift from her shoulders. When you put it like that, it almost sounds manageable. Besides, Webb grinned. What's the worst that could happen? Chen nearly choked on her coffee. Marcus never asked that question. The universe has a sense of humor, and it's usually at our expense. As they laughed together, neither of them noticed the small probe that had been monitoring their conversation from the shadows. The device transmitted their words across the galaxy, where they were received by thousands of species hanging on every human utterance. The galaxy had found its protectors, and the protectors had just volunteered for the job. Epilogue: The New Guardians. 3 years after the Battle of the Void. The emergency klaxon echoed through the corridors of humanity's newest deep space facility, Guardian Station Alpha. Captain Chen, now Admiral Chen, commander of the Human Response Corps, rushed through the bustling command center where dozens of species worked side by side with human personnel. Report, she called to Commander Webb, who had insisted on following her into this new role despite multiple promotions he could have taken elsewhere. Ma'am, we've got a code black from the Rim territories. An entire system has gone dark. No communications, no traffic, nothing. Admiral Chen studied the tactical display as it updated with the latest intelligence. The missing system was home to over 2 billion beings across 4 different species. How long since last contact? 18 hours, replied Dr. Vasquez, who now served as the Corps' chief xenological advisor. Long-range sensors are picking up massive gravitational anomalies. Whatever happened there, it was big. Response fleet status? Commander Park, now. Her chief of operations checked his boards. We have the resilience ready to deploy along with the new determination and stubborn hope. Full human crews all equipped with the latest EM projection arrays and quantum displacement drives, and our allied support? 3 Centaurian cruisers, 2 Altarian science vessels, and a Melodian hospital ship are standing by. Oh, and Admiral? Park smiled. Captain Vriska specifically requested to accompany the mission. Chen felt a warmth in her chest. Over the past 3 years, the Melodian captain had become one of humanity's closest allies, often volunteering for the most dangerous missions as her way of repaying the debt she felt she owed. Approved. What about the new recruits? Dr. Vasquez's expression grew excited. Admiral, you're going to love this. We've just received our first non-human volunteers for the Corps, a squad of Rex shock troopers who want to learn human style, tactics, and believe it or not, a Centaurian engineer who says she wants to work with the crazy humans who make impossible things possible. Chen shook her head in amazement. When the Corps had been established, she never imagined other species would want to join their reckless methods. Integration training status? Completed last week, Webb replied. Turns out teaching aliens to think like humans is educational for everyone involved. The VREX learned about creative problem solving, and we learned that their species has a natural talent for what they call honorable insanity. And the Centaurian? Dr. Vasquez laughed. Engineer Kayla 7 has already submitted 3 proposals for impossible modifications to our ships. Her first suggestion was to install temporal displacement drives that would let us arrive at emergencies before we receive the distress calls. That's... Chen paused, considering. Actually, not completely insane. File it under maybe later. The command center's main display suddenly flared to life with an incoming priority transmission. The face that appeared was distinctly reptilian, with scales that shifted color to display emotion. This is Fleet Commander Iska of the Serpentine Confederacy. The being hissed, its scales showing patterns Chen recognized as extreme distress. We are transmitting from the edge of the Corvani system. Something has consumed our worlds. The transmission flickered with interference, but the commander's next words came through clearly. The planets are gone, not destroyed, consumed. eaten by something that moves through space like a living storm. Our fleets engaged, but conventional weapons had no effect. The creature it's the size of a gas giant, and it's heading for the core worlds. The transmission cut to static, then returned with desperate clarity. We know of your victory against the Void Hunters. We know humans specialize in impossible solutions. Please, if anyone can stop this thing, it's the Deathworlders. We're sending all our data. Help us. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Commander Webb was the first to speak. Admiral, the data package is coming through now. Preliminary analysis shows. Jesus Christ. Language, Commander, Chen said automatically, then saw his expression. That bad? Ma'am, this thing makes the Void Hunters look like house pets. It's not just big, it's actively consuming matter and converting it to energy. Stellar engineering, on a scale we can't even comprehend. Dr. Vasquez was already analyzing the incoming data. Admiral, based on these readings, we're looking at a creature that might be older than most stars. Something that's been wandering the galaxy for millions of years, feeding on entire solar systems. Park looked up from his tactical displays. Ma'am, at its current rate of consumption and travel, it'll reach the Serpentine core worlds in 72 hours. After that, he paused, running calculations. After that, it's on a direct course for the Galactic Center, including Earth. The Audiobook weight of the moment settled over everyone in the command center. This wasn't just another rescue mission. This was potentially the end of everything. Admiral Chen stood in the center of it all, feeling the familiar weight of impossible responsibility. Around her, the best minds from dozens of species waited for her decision. Options, she said simply. Webb pulled up tactical projections. We could evacuate the core worlds, but we're talking about 40 billion beings across 12 systems. The logistics alone would take months we don't have. Park finished. Dr. Vasquez was deep in the creature's biodata. Admiral, there might be another way. This thing has been consuming matter for eons, but it's never encountered organized resistance. What if we don't try to fight it? Explain. What if we try to communicate with it? Something this old, this vast. It might be intelligent, it might just be hungry. Commander Webb stared at her. You want to negotiate with something that eats planets? I want to understand it, Vasquez replied. Humans have a talent for finding common ground with the impossible. Maybe this creature isn't evil. Maybe it's just trying to survive, same as everyone else. Admiral Chen felt the familiar stirring of an impossible idea taking shape. It was the kind of plan that only humans would consider, attempting diplomacy with a cosmic horror that could swallow worlds. Time to intercept? Park checked his calculations. At maximum warp with our new quantum drives, we could reach the creature in 18 hours. And our fleet? The resilience, determination, and stubborn hope are ready for immediate deployment. Our allied vessels can follow in the second wave. Chen looked around her command center one more time. 3 years ago, she had been a simple exploration captain. Now she was about to lead humanity's response to a threat that could end civilization itself. All right, people. We're going to attempt first contact with a planet-eating cosmic entity. If that doesn't work, we're going to figure out how to stop something that's been successfully eating solar systems since before most of our species evolved. She paused, feeling the familiar mix of terror and determination that came with every impossible mission. In other words, it's Tuesday. The command center erupted in activity as the Human Response Corps prepared for their most challenging mission. Yet, ships launched from Guardian Station Alpha, carrying crews from dozens of species united by a single, uniquely human philosophy. When faced with the impossible, the answer wasn't to give up. The answer was to get creative. As Admiral Chen settled into her command chair aboard the Resilience, she opened a channel to the entire fleet. All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we face something that has never been challenged, never been stopped, never been anything but successful in its cosmic hunger. She looked out at the stars, thinking of all the worlds, all the species, all the lives depending on what they were about to attempt. It's about to learn what happens when an unstoppable force meets beings too stubborn to be movable objects. The fleet leaped into hyperspace, racing toward a confrontation that would either save the galaxy or witness its end. Behind them, across thousands of worlds, billions of beings watched and waited, their hopes carried in ships crewed by the strangest protectors the universe had ever seen. The Deathworlders were on their way, and they were bringing all the impossible determination that had made them the answer to every prayer for help in the galaxy. The creature that had fed unopposed for millions of years was about to discover why the galaxy had learned to call Earth's children when darkness fell. Humans never knew when to quit, and sometimes that made all the difference in the universe. The end.